Good morning, good morning. Welcome to First Center. Thank you all for being here. This is Mother's Day as well, right? Do we have any mothers in the house? Happy Mother's Day. Mothers in the audience, happy Mother's Day. Let's start with a poem by N. Gill. This is a little tribute to Mother's Day. It's entitled Mother. The water of her womb, your first home. The body she pulled apart to welcome you into the world. The spirit in you she helped grow with all she knew. The heart she gave you when yours fell apart. You are her soft miracle. So she gave you her eyes to see the best in the worst. You carry your mother in your eyes. Make her proud of all she watches you do. Today's lesson somehow got the title, Tough Times Never Last. And this is a talk that we had, a lesson a few years ago that I spent some time redoing it. We start out with a basic metaphysical idea that everything is acted upon by Spirit. It's done unto you as you believe. Let us know universal Spirit, the Spirit within us, when we connect with it, can move mountains. We invite it in now. As we unite with it, recognize it, we have the ability to heal our hearts, minds, body, and soul. I declare we have the faith to heal body, mind, and soul. And I say to Spirit, give me the faith to manifest the life of my dreams and make my destiny and reality here and now forevermore, peaceful and wonderful. So again, good morning. I remember when I was much younger and I was in sales. I was selling homes and insurance and different things. I had sales managers, and they always used to say, make it happen. And so that was an expression that I got early on. That, we are the ones that can make it happen. And when I was younger, we're all pumped up and ready for anything. There was an excitement. Well, thinking back then, the excitement and the enthusiasm was the important factor. But we were not really making anything happen. We're not through our power. Ernest Holmes, in our textbook on page 164, says, in so many words, hey, we don't will things into manifestation. So it doesn't happen through willpower. Our teaching is not about wishing, and it's not about hoping either for change. Nor is it about manipulating life to do your bidding. It doesn't work that way. You can't pray enough. You can't manipulate it. This is something that is not manipulatable. So how does it work? Our teaching involves the use of what we call principle, this divine stuff. Okay, and so how do we learn to use it? What do we do to engage it? We have a tool. We call it affirmative prayer. Years ago, they would call it spiritual mind treatment, which makes it sound mysterious, but it's not as mysterious as all that. It's energy, and it's the way we use this energy. If we learn to live the affirmative life, we're developing within our consciousness a different approach to life than most people. So we have a way, we have a path. We're happy to teach it to you. The more you get involved, the easier it will get to understand. It's not that hard. It's just, it requires a certain amount of attention and focus. And you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. So let us have this openness. And as you do, you're going to develop what we call an avenue in your consciousness, an avenue in mind, so you can allow life to express in higher and better ways. As we do affirmative prayer, we're developing, as I say, We're clearing a place in our own consciousness for a different kind of outcome that could be in our life. Affirmative prayer expands our consciousness, and it lets reality in. See, my consciousness is playing out my life. My life isn't about anybody else other than me. And I can create a different experience, but something has to move within me so I see things in a different way. So as we center ourselves, maybe you meditate, maybe you take quiet moments, but it involves quieting down and centering yourself in this idea that there's one power, one life. And as we commune with that, it will clarify your mentality. All the stuff that's like circling in your mind and your world slows right down when you slow down and be here now and cultivate the awareness of spirit within. And as we cultivate this awareness more and more, and you might say to yourself, I live in it, I move in it, I have my being in it, everything I see is it. It will clarify your mentality. It will allow you to gently remove old tapes, stories, what I call the ancient hurts, the resentments, anything that's blocking you from experiencing the good and the God, which is always the reality. If you're talking about reality, it's always that there is God in my life, there is spirit in my life. Everything I see is spirit, I move in spirit. So slowing down, taking that moment, maybe taking that moment several times a day. There's no right way. You can do it in the morning, you can do it in the evening. Some of you do it throughout your days because you're learning to live the affirmative life, which suggests, look, I'm putting this idea of God or this energy. Younger people don't like to call it God, and you don't have to. It doesn't have to have a name. It's a presence. Cultivate an awareness of that, and it will clarify your mentality. And then you'll gently, thought by thought, start neutralizing the negatives, exchanging the negatives, trading in the negatives for the positive ideas. And as you do this, there will be light that you will come into your life. It will be a greater understanding. When we're plugged into anything, like there's a lamppost next to me. When we plug into this energy and when we remember it, it fills us right up. When you're connecting with it throughout the day, you're kind of like you've got like a charge. When you're forgetting it, you sometimes get into reaction with people, or you're fighting with yourself because you have old ideas that you're forgetting and old hurts. You can operate from all the things that have happened to you that have hurt you and everything you've been taught that has been not empowering, or you can plug in and just take those moments to remind yourself, I am as God created me. All of us are. Each of us are one with this power, but we forget it. I mean, many stories, books have been written about that one idea, the prodigal son or prodigal child, born in the kingdom. That's every one of us. But how quickly we forget that in our day-to-day living. How quickly we descend into reaction and judgment. And we don't do it just with the world. We do it with ourselves too. And we teach here every Thursday night a self-healing class based on Louise Hay's book. And she would say the bottom line for everybody is we don't feel adequate, we don't feel good enough. And where does that come from? You came into this world amazing, beautiful child. You were loved from the time you were born. And, but we learn quickly in those early years so much information. And we keep on building a story. And these are the stories that we really want to start dismantling. Not the good stuff, not the stuff that you got when you were a kid that where you were nurtured. But we've had a lot of things that have happened to us as we've been growing up. And this is a time for us to deconstruct any of the stuff that's been holding us back, that would look like resentments or fearful thinking, ideas that there's not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and all of that. So when you're plugged in, when you remind yourself, when you're learning to live what we call the affirmative life, when you're looking to see that there's good in every encounter, and when we can come from this place of real knowing, there's no doubt, there's no fear, there is peace. It's kind of like you invited spirit into your awareness, and then you've heard these old corny expressions, God and I am a majority. When you're plugged into the idea that there is spirit, and spirit is in you, operating through you, and if you can remember that, then you walk through situations in a different way in your day-to-day living. But you need to keep inviting that awareness in. So it isn't hard. It's just a question of remembering. There was a lady on our call this week who's got now we have smartphones, as you all know. She sends herself automatically messages I don't know if it's every couple hours or whatever it is. It's an affirmation, it's a reminder. And I don't remember what hers was, but it could be, I am as God created me would be one you could put, or everything is perfect. If you could remind yourself, or you could devise some way to remind yourself that all is well, and I like the idea you can do it with your phone, because that's really what needs to happen. To have that shift in consciousness, you don't have to do anything. But one of the ways to do it is just stay plugged in, find a way to keep reminding yourself. We right now live in a perfect universe, and it needs to be seen and felt mentally. You've got to feel it, you've got to sense it before it can become our experience. If you're just talking, you've got to connect with it. We right now live in a perfect universe, but you've got to let yourself know that, feel that, sense it. I remember Rev Wade and a few of the others that I've known. He was, I think, getting at some of the Troward material, one of our earlier teachers, and he said there needs to be a feeling in the treatment process or in the affirmative prayer process. So for you to know that you live in a perfect universe, you have to somehow slow yourself down a little bit so you can sense it. It can't just be in your head. You have to connect that with feeling. And then it will move. Things will move forward for you. We must know it and feel it. Know and feel this connection with unity, the power that you have. Our challenges are largely mental. And what does that mean? It means it's my thinking, which will cause my feelings, because if I'm thinking negatively and I'm ruminating or going round and round and round with negative thoughts, what do you think I'm going to be feeling? If I'm a negative thinker and I'm doing ain't it awful, nobody understands, and I keep on that road of negative thought, or I have resentments, or I have a lot of fears, and I just keep nurturing my fears and my anger and my resentments and my stories about this isn't good, the finances, the country, my family, my this, my that. The sky is falling. If I keep doing that, what is it that you think my life is going to feel like and look like? I mean, it'll bring me into depression. You can change your world as you learn to change your thinking. But changing your thinking is not as easy as you think, because I don't know how old anybody is, and it doesn't matter, but you've got a lifetime of this stuff that's built up. And some of it's wonderful, right? And then there's a whole bunch of it that's not so wonderful. So if you want to more or less hijack that negative train of thought, or what the old-time teachers would say, that negative train of causation. Now, why would they call it a negative train of causation? Well, what they're trying to say is, if I got all this negativity in me, it's just creating a world of crap, And if I want to have if I want this week to be better, Okay, this is Sunday. If you want to have, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to shape up in a different way, then we want to hijack that train. Okay, how do you hijack that train that's running on a negative, it's just, if you're ruminating in negativity, what do you think this week is going to be like? If you have a lot of self-doubt and you're living in fear and you're just think like it's just really miserable and my life is miserable and it's too late for me, that winds up taking you to places that nobody wants to go. And many of you aren't doing that. Many of you are kind of like getting by. You're not really paying attention to your thinking. You try to be positive a little bit here and there. And if you're doing it that way, trying to be positive a little bit here and there, guess what you're going to get? You can get positive here and there. But, you can take this power, because you have the power, and you can take it to a different level. So we use words like you can learn to commune with this spirit and understand more, and that it lives within you and it responds to you. Now, that was the great gift of Ernest Holmes. He said there's power for good in the universe, and it's in you, operating through you as you. You're not just a piece of it. You are all of it. Everything that this spirit is you operating through you. You have this awesome power that's at your disposal. Now, I'm going to tell you, most people don't realize it, they don't know it, and if they hear it, they forget it, they don't believe it, because they go right back into the old beliefs, like nobody understands me, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70, my life is this, my life is that, and all of that is a story. Okay, you don't have to do anything. But I implore you, it's smart to let go of any of the stories and all of the stories. You could be entering in this week or today the most exciting time in your life. Starting here, starting now. Raymond Charles Barker always said, yesterday ended last night. So if you could leave yesterday, and last month, in your quarrels and fights and angers and resentments, if you leave them and just leave them and come into a new moment where everything is possible, where you actively cancel out any of the junk that you keep on dragging into the present, because the stuff that ruminates inside of you is the stuff that's creating your life. So when you find yourself in these places, these stressful situations that we find ourselves in, we could always say to ourselves, this is only a thought I'm having, and a thought can be changed. See, everything's just thoughts. I remember a talk that Reverend Joyce had said when we used in her life celebration. It's only words, and words are all we have. And the words that we have can change our life. But what's behind our words? It's our intentions. If you have words that you speak that are life-giving, and this is what you really want to cultivate, is an awareness of spirit, and we want to be using language always that's lifting ourselves up. As you're able to do that, not only do you help yourself, but all your interactions with people start to change. If you get into our work with Louise, the Hay material on Thursdays, we're always reminding you of that. Most of our problems have a lot to do with what we think, what we dwell on, what we worry about. So it makes a lot of sense, to pay attention to what we're thinking and try to get a handle on, I'll call it that train of causation. If it's a negative train, it's a train that's going to take you nowhere that you want to go. So we have power. We can learn to use our power. Thursdays, I usually talk about the conversation that matters. And the conversation that matters is really what dwells within you most of your day. And I'm a product of a 12-step program 42 years ago. They suggest having inventories. Inventories don't have to be tedious, but it's really a couple times during the day where you just reflect. What was my day like? What were my interactions like? Was I being an uplifting presence, Or was I being I'll say a witch? Did I tend to be kind? Was I loving? Was I extending love and peace, or was I reacting to everything? So having an inventory or a time of reflection, or several per day, could be a very helpful thing to do. Because it's that conversation that you're having with yourself. You can look good. I put on a suit today, make yourself presentable. All that's nice. But it doesn't matter. What really matters is what you look like on the inside. And that is the very thing that's playing out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if we want to step into a new world, a new reality, you have the power to do that because you're connected with Spirit. You are an individualization of it. So I'd like you to imagine yourself having a conversation with yourself, maybe in front of a mirror, like when you shave or you fix yourself up. And when you look at yourself, do you like what you see? Well, that's an indicator right there. If you can't feel positive as you look at yourself in the mirror, connecting with your own image, I'd suggest that's a place to start with doing some work. Because you're amazing, and you got to be able to look in the mirror and somehow connect with yourself and realize, I'm amazing. And there ought to be a joyous feeling when you look at your image in the mirror. I mean, that's really ideal. Because even as you approach yourself, if you look at yourself and you start criticizing yourself, that's really not a great sign. So we begin there. We're always working towards greater self-acceptance and self-appreciation. So again, as you imagine yourself looking at yourself in the mirror, if you're not there yet, if you're not connecting with yourself, kind of like with a twinkle or a smile, and say, this is where you want to get there. So make a mental note today. Write it down and tell yourself, I want to get to the place where I can look at myself in the mirror and be happy. That's not a great feat, is it? I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm asking you to take a look at yourself and remember how great you are. You've been through a lot. Maybe you can even acknowledge that, because that's something. So I've had you imagine yourself in front of the mirror now. Let's now take another kind of look. And you can acknowledge your number of years on the planet. Doesn't matter if it's 2 or 82 or whatever it is. And you can acknowledge, you look at yourself, and you can even do this in your mind and ask yourself the question, am I happy with what I've done so far? Okay, only you can answer that for yourself. I've been around a long time now. And, I could ask myself that question, and, in some places I might feel not really great. In other places I can acknowledge, look, hell, you've been through a lot, and, and here you are, and you're still swinging, and, but this is a conversation you're having with yourself, and it's important to have these questions for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're not happy after all these years, most likely you're going to continue the way you've been doing it unless you do something else. We all know what inertia means, right? I don't remember a lot of my sciences and stuff, but if something goes slowing down, right, you're going to keep on doing things the same way, unless some greater force comes in and acts upon this train of causation, right? Unless an object in motion, will tend to stay on the same track, unless it's acted upon by another force. You can be the force. You can be the person. You got this whole life that seems to be going in a way that's not really the way you like, and you kind of like have given up, or you think, oh, well, that's all there is, and you got this story going on. But you can hijack that conversation. You can get into that conversation and say, no, no, and you can remember how great you are. You can remember the power that you possess. Starting here, starting now, it can be radically different and much, much better. Your life and your consciousness are always playing out just the way it has been, and it will continue to play out just the way it's been unless you summon within yourself the resources which you have to act upon it. So it means, my God, I really need to start thinking about things differently. I really need to stop whatever it is that I'm doing, and you all know what you're doing. It could be it's a resentment, it could be a feud you got going on with a sister, it could be anything. But only you know what you harbor that's life-giving, and you also know what you harbor that's, really not getting you where you want to go. It's not too late. It doesn't matter. Again, if you're 9 years old or you're 90 years old. A very bright person, I got this line probably 15 years ago. She was always saying, the final chapter has not yet been written. So that's encouraging, especially if you get to my age. The final chapter has not been written. You can turn the whole thing around, the whole thing. And I invite you to, because you have the power to. Starting here and starting now, you can interrupt that whole trajectory, the way it's been. Okay, and all of you. Some of you have been coasting. God bless you. I coast sometimes myself. But you can take your life to a different place. So what do you need to do? Well, we play with words here. You can take that pause that refreshes. That's an old Coca-Cola slogan. But you don't just take that pause once. You learn to slow down and reflect, commune, because you know that your conversation is creating your life. So set those reminders on your cell phones, or maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you're just good, doing it. Whatever it's going to take, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's using your phone, to become more mindful of what it is that you're actually creating. Starting here, starting now, you can interrupt that whole conversation, that inner dialogue that you have with yourself. It might look like there's a lot of loss in your life as you reflect. And you might be living in such a way where you think this is all too much. Louise encountered a person once who said, if you really understood me, you wouldn't want to be with me. I'm, really negative. It's just too much, But here's the thing. No matter how tough it is and how awful it has been, or maybe you're going through hell right now in a way, it doesn't have to remain that way. You've heard it said, I'm sure somewhere, wherever there is God in you, there is a majority. So that's a clue. Wherever you can invite spirit into your awareness, you've already won. But you can't do that just one time. You got to commune with that. Learning to live the affirmative life would suggest, I'm going to bring this idea of spirit into my life and I'm going to learn to affirm life every day and keep on inviting this awareness of this source, of this spirit into my life. So you can do it any way you want to do it, but it's important to do it. Because if you're flying solo and you're out there just reacting to everything, it's kind of like if you have the ability to plug into that light, that receptacle there, and have that power operating with you, why wouldn't you? Spirit will guide you if you allow it. So these are corny expressions, but they're all true. Wherever there's God in you, there's a majority. On a soul level, you're here to learn many things. You're here to evolve and to grow. You aren't here just to stagnate and get by. You're here to evolve. You all came in here to learn something and to express brightly and creatively and in freedom. On a human level, for some reason, we resist change and we resist growing. We try to have everything be the same. We try to have keep people the same. It doesn't work that way. Everything changes. You're changing. We're evolving. People are evolving. People come and people go. You know that in your heart of hearts. You know it about yourself. You're growing and you're evolving. Why try to resist it? It is the way of life. It's the one constant. Change is always happening. Life is always going forward also. Thankfully, it keeps lifting us up as it works within us and through us. The energy that we're always talking about that has no real name is indwelling. The Spirit is indwelling. It's in you, operating through you, and it's in everybody else also. We are all evolving in our own unique ways. Please don't try to make anybody else like you, right? Leave them alone. The work that we do always is where? Within ourselves. We might not think at any given time that we are good enough. We may assess others as being deficient. That's a mistake, but we do it, right? Worse, we might think of others as being the cause of our difficulties. That's another mistake. Nobody's the cause of your problems. There's a line I use quite often, and I borrowed it from another spiritual source. In truth, and we're truth students here, in truth, there's nothing outside of you. So when I'm looking at my whole life, and I want to go and blame people, places, the things, and situations, it could be the government, it could be anything and everything, it's just, please, for your own sake, stop. In truth, there's nothing outside of you. In every moment of your life, you can create it to be something else. You have the power to create it to be something else. You have the power with your words and with your knowing to know that there's nothing outside of you. You don't have to get yourself all upset over things. Okay? I remember a line from the Course in Miracles right now where it says, "The peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function in my life." Your job would be to redirect yourself back to knowing that Spirit is all that there is. Commune with that and it will inform you. You won't have to be out there reacting to everything. You want to have peace be within, and then you'll understand as you encounter people, every encounter is a holy encounter, because the people that you're going to meet along the day, throughout your week, are all there. Even when they're acting out, doing things you don't understand, or they are doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. So you want to give them a break, and at the same time you want to be with yourself, and you want to tell yourself all is well, and just start working on your own consciousness. We have a problem as human beings. We have a lot of judgments, and we don't get things right half the time. Okay, now why is that? When we're raised as kids, we're raised by people. They did the best they could. They taught us a lot of things. There's different ways to explain it. Landmark education says we have a racket that goes on within us. In our Science of Mind classes, Shirley, if she's on the call, would talk about we have blind spots. You can call that BS. You can call it whatever. We have a lot of BS. That's blind spots, right? And those blind spots and that racket that lives within us, it's hiding the light that is really the truth of us. See, if you can imagine yourself as a ball of light and intelligence and creative intelligence, if you got all this stuff that's been with you for 20, 30, 40 years, my anger, my prejudices, my grievances, and all that stuff, that's my racket. And that stuff it just keeps stopping me from shining. There's not a resentment you have that's doing you any good, I promise you. Not a single one of them. Okay? Every time you are critical of another or yourself, it's not helping you. So we see life through our own lens. And if my lens is clouded with my resentments and my judgments and all of that, and my strong opinions, that's the stuff that you want to clear away. I don't want to have opinions about people, places, and things. Honest to God, I want to know that they're doing the best they can with what they got, and leave them the heck alone. You know, the work we do here isn't on changing the world. The work we do here is really on clearing away the debris that's been there in our life. And I promise you, you've got some. That's why I invite you to look in the mirror in the morning and say, hey, self, give yourself a smile. Here I am again. And, you know, in your day-to-day inventories, you might say, okay. And when you do these inventories, you don't do them to criticize yourself. It's just for you to gain awareness of how you're doing. And, you know, if you were involved in any type of recovery program, they would say, you know, you do this kindly and lovingly so you can identify, and you say, okay, I see that I'm missing the mark. That's the only sin you can ever have. I could do something different here. And you make a decision. Because you remember, you have this train of causation. It's going to go one way, and you really can interrupt it. And you can have it go another way. But it really requires the power of decision for you to energetically say, hey, enough, enough, enough. I'm starting here, starting now. I'm going to be more positive. I'm going to stop, doing something. So all these things, the racket, the belief system, the blind spots get in the way. We need to come back continually to that place where we know all is well, that we are whole and complete. Many of us, most of us, forget that we are wonderful. We forget that we're whole and complete. So take that moment in that mirror. We have sometimes in classes on Thursday, we'll pull around the mirror. And the mirror is a very powerful tool in a group, because you pass it around and have people look in their eyes and say, I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. And you can notice what comes up for you when you do that. And that the negative stuff that might come up, that's wonderful, because you'll see where your beliefs are. And that's where you're going to identify it so you can neutralize it and change it. Maybe as children, you didn't get a lot of this positive reinforcement, or enough of it, right? Maybe people weren't telling you, hey, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you can do anything. Maybe no one told you that you're amazing and powerful, and you're here to live an amazing life. Maybe you didn't get that along the way. Maybe they didn't tell you that you're here to learn, to grow, and to express yourself in freedom. And so we're telling you now, if you didn't get it then. And I'm telling you now, most of us have some type of racket. Most of us have some blind spots, false ideas that we hang on to. We might think that you're a new thought. Hundreds of people throughout the month listen to our messages. So, you're exposed to it. You might think, I'm in new thought after all, right? And then we might think of ourselves as a good person. And yes, indeed, we are good. Your worth is never in question. Everybody who's listening to this broadcast now or in the coming weeks are spiritual beings, one and all. Your value is not in question. What is in question is whether you realize it yourself, whether you sense the magnitude of what you are, whether you know the power that you have and how important you are, and whether you know it in every fiber of your being. Because when you get to the place of knowing who you are in truth, feeling it and sensing it, I am as God created me, then there's going to be a peace. And I'm talking about transformational peace. You'll start to have, as you really begin to understand who you are, there's going to be an abiding faith that you're going to have. Your faith is going to increase, and it's going to be unshakable. You don't want to live in protest. You love the world, and you know it's unfolding always in perfect order. You're not ignorant of the facts in your life. If you're having tough experience with people or financially, or you're not ignorant of anything. You are aware that others are evolving just as you are and doing what they do, and they're evolving, they're unfolding. You know that, so leave them alone. Work on yourself. You're becoming more and more compassionate because you're developing spiritual knowledge and spiritual awareness. This type of person practices knowing and seeing good in all things and in all moments. Now, we know this is a big challenge. Nobody does it perfectly either. Because things can look pretty bleak at times. We can witness all kinds of things that would suggest that we're wrong or people are wrong, and we can lose our way very, very quickly. So keep on thinking of plugging into Source, inviting Spirit into your awareness. And it's a challenge, but this is a challenge that's worthy of you. Just keep coming back to remembering, I am as God created me. Remembering and forgetting. It's the game that we all play as human beings. We get off track often. And what we want to do there is just gently bring ourselves back. Keep practicing this, the idea that, Spirit is here, God is here in every moment. When you're practicing knowing that, then you're one with it. When you're reminding yourself that you're supplied and supported right here, right now, then you're canceling out any worry, any doubt, any fear. You're trading in all these ideas. As soon as you find yourself, going there, keep on neutralizing it, canceling it, replacing it. Neutralize this racket, these blind spots. So you can increasingly live in freedom and express yourself as you were meant to. You've always been good enough. You've always been magnificent. If you don't know it by now, then we're going to be reminding you every week, at least twice a week. There's an aspect of you that is always in touch with Spirit, because you're a part of Spirit. You'll always be getting reminders. The thing about Spirit is, in your dreams and your moments, you always have these. Sometimes I don't even like it because there's something that's guiding each of us. Because we're in touch with it. We're one with Spirit. You're getting reminders all the time. If you can develop the habit of connecting with these ideas, and it'd be helpful just to attend these half an hour, 45-minute messages twice a week. But, more than that, each day. Finding a way to remind yourself of who you are and connecting with it. As you tune in here, every week, every lesson, every gathering, we're going to remind you always of the Spirit that is within you. Louise Hay simply said, it's time to do a mental house cleaning. This is appropriate for this particular holiday. Maybe it's time to nurture ourselves. We nurture ourselves by identifying and routing out all the negative chatter that essentially works against us. Maybe it's time to look away from these negatives. Maybe it's time to stop the critical self-talk and stop the critical analysis and opinions about other people. Today would be a good day to begin on this day of nurturing, don't you think? Starting here, starting now. Let us release the need to think of ourselves as not adequate, not good enough, failures, or whatever, in any way we do it. Let's release our judgments. You are always in the perfect time. It doesn't matter. You might have done some really things that you're not happy with, say. This would be the perfect day to understand that you did the best you could at the time, and as did everyone else. So let's release all of this. The point I'm really trying to drive home today, the main idea is your life has always unfolded perfectly. If you could take the time and meditate and look back just a bit, you'll see how wonderful life has been. You'll sense the perfection that's been in your life. If you can look back, you'll see and have a glimpse that there's always been divine activity. Everything's brought you into a greater place. This is the way it works. And this is what we do. We remind you of what is and that all is well, and it's always been operating perfectly. This is what our practice is about, learning to see and sense this. There's no outside. Everything comes from the inside to the outside. Your life has always been about you. There is spirit. There is this one life operating in us, around us, and it creates the world. There's not a spot where God is not. So there is you and your consciousness. Everybody in this room and on this call is on a journey, whether you know it or not. If you open the door, it's a place of knowing and peace and a realization that you're safe and okay. So if you go within, you're going to be nourished. If you take the time to connect with Spirit, you're going to come to a place of peace. And you're going to develop a serenity, and you're going to become unfazed by anything. It'll be a place where you don't take anything personally, where you don't feel sorry for yourself. So all answers to all challenges will be found within you as you become, as you evolve and you develop greater spiritual realization. So as we wind it down a little bit today, how fitting is this day as we honor mothers everywhere. You are giving birth to a remembrance. You're awakening right now. I want to honor this by saying namaste to all of you. As you go forward, if there are any fears, any challenges that are present in your life right now, I want you to be resolved to meet everything that happens. Meet it with gratitude as you turn to Spirit with this awareness, because it's always responding and working through you. And your life is kind of like, you can think of a butterfly. It emerges through a cocoon. You're always becoming more beautiful. A person cannot emerge from such a time, the challenges you've had. You cannot emerge through all of that without being unchanged. All of us are becoming more all the time, never less. We will be different, we will be better, we will be wiser, happier, as we learn more about our strengths. You're always going upward and forward. You might think you're not, but you are. The universal intelligence, this presence, is always responding to what you say. So coming back to the first part of this lesson, so let's interrupt that negative chain of causation. Put a demand on consciousness and tell yourself, I love you and I honor you. And just stop wherever there's any critical thought that you're having of yourself or others. In our teaching, I'd like to remind you that Spirit is acting as an internal guidance system in you. I suggest that each of us remember to invite Spirit into our awareness. You will always have guidance when you connect with it. Open your heart and mind to it. Ernest Holmes, in so many words, said on page 273, whoever believes that Spirit Source is operating in them is more right than they know. Spirit, he said, is specializing in you through the law. If you are with us for any length of time, you'll come to know this. I will say this. This was from Ernest Holmes. There is divine intelligence in you that knows always the right answer and accepts it as being true. And you can repeat, there is a divine intelligence in me that always knows the right answer and accepts it as true. The answer to any challenge you're ever going to have is right there within you in mind. You've got to be open to its wisdom and guidance, though. There is that which is within you that knows. You are one with this guidance and intelligence.